Grand Risings. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, and this is your Shekinah Wisdom Podcast. Today, my lovelies, is Thought Provoking Thursday, and I want to provoke some thought today. How many times have you sacrificed who you were just to get along or to be with someone? It could be a group of friends, it could be at a job, it could be in a personal relationship. But how many times have you sacrificed who you were just for the greater good? And how many times has that sacrifice landed you in a situation that you did not want to be in? There were times in my life where I made sacrifices and concessions that did not bring out my highest good. And in the overall, it did not bring out the highest good of those around me. When I was younger, I was suffering from separation, anxiety, and abandonment issues. And when you have those issues, you will attract a lot of people in your life, some good and some not, mostly not. And because of the lack frequency that you're operating from. When you're operating from the separation, anxiety, and the lack frequency, the things that you see are not what's really there. And the things that you fear are greater than what would actually ever happen in real life. Your anxiety is magnified because of loss that you suffered in your childhood. And this can show up in a lot of ways. In some ways, some people become hoarders, where they hoard things because they're afraid of losing. So they'll just keep holding on to things that they should not hold on to. And this could be person, places, or things in their life. Another way that this can show up is by making concessions in life that you would not normally make, but you're making them out of fear. Fear and lack reside on similar frequencies, right? They're lower vibrational. And one way to rebalance those things is to ground yourself, right? It is to get back to that place where those feelings surface, those feelings of inadequacy, of I can't do this, or I can't make it without A, B, C, and D. One thing that I learned on my journey is that fear is false evidence appearing real. And any time that I did something to move past that place of fear, I was successful. So I realized that a lot of those things that I was fearful of was really a figment of my imagination that is keeping me trapped in the hurts of the past, right? Because sometimes your mind can keep you trapped in a hurtful loop by replaying negative scenarios in your life. And you in turn thinking that this is all life will offer you. It were the same negative experiences that you previously had. But what if I told you those negative experiences were not created to scar you? No, they weren't. They were created to better prep you, right? So you know when unsavory events come up, you can sense it and you know how to move accordingly, right? It's not to have you fearful and paralyzed into thinking that everybody's going to hurt you the same way the previous one hurt you. When you think like that, you are not allowing the universe to bring you your karma. Karma is not always bad, you know. Karma is basically like your level up process. Karma determines whether you will graduate to your next set of life lessons, or are you going to sit there and repeat the same ones over and over. And part of when you're passing your lessons, you get to have a life party is what I call it, where life rains down on you all of this bliss for you passing your test, right? But just because that happens doesn't mean that there's not going to be other tests after that, you know? And that's why we cannot act like we're high and mighty because we've passed certain tests and we're looking at others that have yet to get to that test. You don't know what test they already took that you haven't taken yet. So that arrogance needs to be tamed, right? Because if you do not tame your ego, life is going to give you a humbling lesson that ensures that ego is humbled. I know for a fact because I've had a number of those life lessons, right? Because in my younger days, I was very arrogant. I had, and it was arrogant. It was not confidence. It was, arrogance is a fake confidence, right? That's when an insecure person is displaying things and you think they have it all, but you realize that they actually don't. And this is done through self-observation, right? When I look back and I analyze myself at different stages of life, and then I see those things repeat, I realize why I experienced them. Because if I did not experience them, I would not be able to identify them. And I'll be thrown for the same loop over and over again. Life is about expansion and growing, right? And as you grow and expand, you look back on your life lessons. And that's what we are to share with one another. It's part of the evolution process, right? One thing you notice, right, about any time I do a podcast, I don't speak in a projecting fashion. Why? Because I have come to understand that everybody that I encounter is a reflection of me in some shape, form, or fashion. Whether it's a reflection, and it could be exaggerated, but whether it's a reflection of my past, present, or my future, right? And it gives me an opportunity to learn from that person. And when you learn from them, you're not projecting and pointing fingers and talking about what they are doing wrong. You talk about what you did wrong. So you can help others take the lead out of the paint, right? Because we collectively, we can look at ourselves like paint. And at one time, we thought lead was the thing. So, of course, lead was added to the paint. But now we're realizing how harmful that lead was. We have to remove it. And one way of removing it is for acknowledging for what it is and not try to cover it up and pretend it was something else. Like, oh no, we didn't use the lead. That wasn't lead that we used. It was something else. No, we can't do that. We have to let people know, yeah, I use lead. And I know that was not the smart idea, but I didn't know. Life didn't come with a handbook. That's how you can approach things, right? And when you approach things like that, watch how your life changes and expands based on those things. And watch how you can positively affect those around you. A lot of people are depending on your healing, right? On you healing you. It's not even, you don't even have to go far and go out and do things like I am, in helping others. Just by you healing yourself is a great service within itself, right? Because we've all been wounded with certain things in childhood. It happens. And you can have the best parents, you can have the best upbringing and still get wounded in childhood when you go to school and interact with people. So we are part of each other's healing, right? Because hurt people hurt people. Oppressed people oppress other people, right? And that's because those toxic cycles became a part of their personality. Rather than them removing the lead from the paint, they've learned how to live with lead in the paint. And being that our forefathers and foremothers have learned to live with lead in the paint, it behooves us to strive to remove the lead even harder, right? Why? Because we're the evolution. It's our job to do that. Any mistakes that they made, it's our job to get it right. And we do it collectively. That's why we all have individual jobs on this planet. And if each person focuses on what their individual job is, think about how great we can move together. You know, happiness starts with sometimes making mind over heart decisions. And you have to understand that the partnerships that you have, right? This should be reciprocal. If everybody, like when I was just on when we did this healing retreat, right? The one thing I loved about the first group that was there and that we were connected with each other is that everybody was a giver, right? And when you have a room full of givers, guess what? Everyone's needs gets met. Because everyone is focused on making sure the other person is right and good. And that's good, right? But sometimes you're not in situations like that. And that's when you have to focus on making sure that your contribution is, like, what are you contributing to the world? What is your sacrifice that you are making to the greater good? That's what you need to focus on. Make sure it's the best sacrifice you can ever make in life. Why? Because we all rely on your children's children are going to rely on it. You know, and the children are going to be our future caregivers. So whether you have children or not, it's important to make sure that the young people are getting the lead out of their paint. And make sure we're not adding lead to their paint. And no one else is putting lead in their paint. And there's a lot of lead already going around everywhere. So our work is cut out for us. But this is something that we can do collectively. I know we can. This past retreat showed me how people who did not know each other could come together collectively and be each other's support system and hold space for one another. That was like a total amazing experience because most people that attended, we did not know one another until we got there. And then it was as though we knew each other our whole lives. You know, like the way we communed and the way we shared responsibilities and the way we shared our cultural experiences and our journey. And being so transparent in a way that our stories help shape one another's life path. That was totally amazing. I've never experienced anything like that. Like I got into an ice bath. Me. I hate the cold with a passion. But that I was psychologically prepared to take an ice bath. And this was all through this group. Anybody that could tell you, like, I keep my temperature in my house, like, up to 80. I'm a tropical baby, okay? And I was born in the spring. So I love the warm weather. And for me, and then it was snowing outside when we took the ice bath, right? So you're taking an ice bath in the winter, in the snow. That was an amazing experience. And it could not happen until I took a step out of the box that I placed myself in. And when I removed the top and got over my fears, I was able to do it. And that alone showed me that my mind is the only thing that totally holds me back in most situations. Like, when you focus your mind on doing so, guess what? You can achieve it. Oh, now, don't just go hopping in an ice bath. This is not something that you just hop in and just do. Now, we had to learn certain breathing techniques so that the shock wouldn't bother us and stuff like that. And they're effective, you know, and I had a blast. So hopefully you will be joining us on our retreat experiences, because when I tell you the experience was so transformational, it was. And I'm still like coming down from that high from that experience. It was like amazing. But I want you to truly think about what your contribution in this life is, right? And I want you to think about what lead do you need to remove from your life. And I'm also here to tell you it's okay to remove lead from your life, right? And over the past 3 years, I had to make so many cuts in my life, only because a lot of the people that were in my life were accumulated during the time that I was dealing with low self-esteem, and I needed company because I didn't like keeping my own company, right? I had to have, so I was either on the phone, I always had someone over, or I'm going out with somebody. One of my friends, I just felt like the need to always have someone around me. That was codependency. But as I shift from that codependent mindset, I was able to transform my life. And as I transformed my life, the people that were a part of that codependent lifestyle no longer resonated with me, right? Vibrationally, it was lowering my vibration because I had accumulated so many people because I was a constant giver. And people were taking advantage of that. They loved that. They loved the fact that I gave and did not know my worth. And the moment I learned what my worth is, they didn't like that anymore. So what happens? People try to do things to take away from what you're creating. And they can only do that if you allow them. Why? Because what's for you is for you, and no one can interfere with that unless you give them permission and access to. And once I realized that, I started making changes accordingly. I started seeing that some people in my life weren't in my life because they truly wanted me in their life, or they truly had positive intentions and feelings for me in their life. And there were those in my life that was just there to take, because they saw that I was a giver, and they saw that what I was giving was top notch. And that will happen to you. That happens to many women and men. And that's why I tell people, right? When you're giving, watch for the reciprocity of that giving in your dealings. If it is not seen, then you have to pull your energy back. And I don't mean that that person has to give back to you the same exact way you're giving to them. Because if they have it to give that way, then they wouldn't need you to pour in that way, right? So obviously they don't have that. But when you're pouring into that individual, what are they doing with that? Right? Are you feeling the positive energy from you pouring into that individual? Are you feeling appreciated? Or are you feeling like you're being taken advantage of? If you are feeling like you're taken advantage of, one or two things. Either you're pouring too much, or you're pouring for the wrong reasons. When you're pouring for the wrong reasons, it's like you're doing things just to get things in return. And it's not pure. It's not coming from a good place. It's coming from a predatorial place, right? And you have to make sure that you're not falling into that pattern. How do you love? How does that person love? How do the people love in your life? Is it destructive? Or is it a positive experience? Right? Because not everybody loves in a way that uplifts people. Some people can love you in a hurtful way. Their love is toxic because they were taught toxic love growing up. And you have to recognize that and be able to move accordingly. You can't allow that into your life, because when you allow toxic love into your life and take hold, it's going to make you toxic. I promise you. There's only very small cases where toxic love was turned into non-toxicity, and the reason why is because hurt people hurt people. And once you've become hurt by that toxic individual, then you can become a hurtful person to people around you. And it becomes a domino effect. So that's why it's important that you look at who you're transferring energies with. Energy transference is real. Every time you interact with someone, there's an energy transference that goes on. They get some of yours, you get some of theirs. So who are you transferring energies with? And this goes with personal, business, and familial actions. Who are you transferring energies with? And is this optimal for you to do so? Right? Once I realized that in my life, cuts had to be made. And were people happy with the cuts? No. Some people who knew that their actions, ways and actions was that of a bogus. They were bogus, right? But people do not like to be exposed for their actions. So rather than just taking accountability, what do? They'll try to tear you down, preparing you for what's going to happen next. Once you make the necessary healthy boundaries in your life, you're going to realize why you had to make the cuts that you did. Because they're going to show and prove to you how unhealthy and toxic your relationship was with them. And don't be upset when it happens. Be thankful. Rejoice in the experience. Why? Because the truth has been shed. And now you can make positive changes accordingly. And make sure that your circle only consists of those people who truly appreciate you and your contributions. As long as you stay in the surroundings of people who do not appreciate or know your worth, you are going to become bitter. It's going to change you in some shape, form, or fashion, and not in a positive light if you stay. But once you acknowledge it for what it is, and you try to make the changes, and there's no changes being made, it behooves you to move on. Because if you don't move on, then anything that occurs, you're accountable for, even if the person was doing something ridiculous. If you were made aware of this person's actions and you stay, that is you in turn saying, I accept this and I'm okay with this lifestyle. Now, if you do not like it and you do not accept it, move accordingly. Start seeing what is truly for you. You can't get what's for you by holding on to what's not for you. It will ruin your life. Promise you. I've done it before, more than once. That's why I can speak with so much authority on this topic. I'm not coming from a place of judgment here, but I am coming from a place of, there was some lead in my paint, and I see that lead in yours, and I just want to give you this little warning so that you won't have to go through the toxicity that I had to experience. And that's how we grew on this retreat, right? Because people were sharing their personal stories of how they overcame certain obstacles. And it made you look at your life in a different perspective. There was a great ego surrendering that took place on this retreat, where I learned the true meaning of forgiveness. Like the true meaning of forgiveness. And this is a lesson I needed to learn, because I was the type of person that, I would become so hurt by an individual that I would cut them off and just not speak to them again. But I've learned to forgive people because I learned and understood that we are all on this life journey without a handbook. And we're going to make mistakes on this journey. But what is that person doing with those mistakes? How are they changing? Are they making strides to be better? Or are they doing the same exact things over and over again? And that's how you determine whether a person's at a level to continue to walk with you, or whether you just have to let them walk alone until they learn the lessons that they need to learn in life. And it, like I said, this is with no judgment, no resentment, or anything like that. It's just acknowledging and understanding that where you currently stand, there are certain individuals that can stand next to you. And some cannot, because they will be weeds to your success. And knowing that, you have to make the changes and choices that are going to align with your highest good and the highest good of those around you. So many lessons that I experienced on this retreat. And I can't wait for the next one, because this one was like, when I tell you it was life-changing, it was life-changing for me. And yeah, I'm going to share more tidbits. I wish I could have shared the footage, but I wanted to go live, but the reception in the mountains wasn't that great. But I have the memories to share with you, and I will share that along the podcast. I hope this has provoked some thought within you today about where you currently stand and where you're going. And I hope you've gained some type of insight that can benefit you in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, if you need further support, you can head over to ShekinahWisdom.com. If you want more information about the retreats, you can email me at ShekinahEarthWisdom@gmail.com. And if you want to support what we do here, the podcast and all the other administrative things that go along behind the scenes, you can cash out Unearthing the Truth. All right, my lovelies, you have a wonderful, thought-provoking Thursday.